Yeah, what's happening? We about to bring that action. Gotta hold it down for my Seattle Kraken. Hey, we going beneath the waves. We going beneath the waves. Get it hype, step onto the ice. Ready for some action. Release the Kraken. Hey, we going beneath the waves. Going beneath the waves.
Hello and welcome to the Beneath the Waves podcast, your source for everything Seattle Kraken and beyond. I'm Heather.
And I'm Matt.
And we are a little short-handed this week for big episode 25, but we still have everything that we normally have in our show, and we're so excited to bring it to you. So we do have the latest Kraken news, including a little look inside the locker room after the game's completed. We have a breakdown of the final game of the season. We're going to check in with Coachella Valley on their way to the playoffs. And we are so thankful for you taking this journey with us, especially this entire season. So since we are near the end of the season, I thought we would take just a quick little look back on this season, share a few thoughts on it, and see how we're feeling now that we've seen all 82 games.
All right, so I'll kick things off here and say, coming into this season, 3/4 of us, me, you, Derek, we're feeling pretty positive about this upcoming season. Way back in, I can't remember if it was August, September, whenever it was we recorded it, we did a preseason time capsule where we predicted various things throughout the season. First goal scorer, most goals, all that. We're going to reveal how those shook out on our Twitter over the course of the next week or so keep tuned for that to see how right or wrong we were. But with one of them was how many points we were going to come out of this season with. You, me, and Derek, we felt maybe delusionally optimistic, and we predicted that our season total would be somewhere in the 90s, and somehow Alex, in his negative Nancy ways, although maybe it's more realistic than negative, was able to correctly nail that we would come out of this season with 76 points. So we do have to give him some kudos on that. Midway through the season, we were all hoping that he would be wrong, but no such luck by the time we got to the end. In terms of the gameplay that happened this season, we often refer to this as mid. You never really knew where the Kraken were going to land day to day, but in the end, we kind of landed right in the middle. We'd get blown out by teams that we should have beaten easily. We'd inexplicably win against teams that we'd seemingly have no chance against, and everything that happened in between those two extremes was just a real coin toss. Despite the lackluster result and failed playoff appearance, I do leave this season feeling considerably better than I did last season. The grit that this team seemed to show since the trade deadline left me hopeful that we're at least maybe heading in a positive direction. There were definitely some downer moments on the other side of the coin this season. The Grubauer saga was a whole journey that added some chaos and uncertainty to our season. Remember back in the fall when we traded our very beloved and valued future considerations for Daniel Sprong, only to send him down to Coachella Valley after 10 games and then ship him off to New Jersey on trade deadline day? Yep, that was something that happened. And we had to also say goodbye to a few fan favorites in Will Borgen, Yanni Gourde, Oliver Bjorkstrand, and Brandon Tanev. While we still lack a real star emphasis on this team, there are several players that I found myself getting really hyped out. Brandon Montour is one of those top guys for sure, with his production, as well as just his charisma and personality that he brought to this team. Shane Wright is absolutely a star in the making, Shane Wright is absolutely a star in the making, who was very sadly underutilized this season with his ice time. Capo Caco, who was a fantastic mid-season acquisition. He seemed to really transition to his new team very well and gel really smoothly with his teammates. We got a preview of what Yanni Newman can do when he comes up to the big show. Joey continued to stand on his head for this team, but was sadly run into the ground towards the end of the season. And how can you not love Jordan Eberle's journey this season, from being named captain on the first game to suffering his unprecedented injury to returning to form? It was all truly inspiring. How are you feeling once the season wrapped?
I think this season was such a roller coaster of a season. We came into it with such high hopes, and I think part of us thought there's no way it can be any worse than last season, and famous last words, right? I mean, I don't know if it was worse, but points wise, obviously, but it was just a frustrating season, I think, overall. we lost games we should have won and won games we should have lost. And that's really hard to reconcile, I think, in our brains of like, what is this team and what's the identity? And I think we've spent so much time talking about that, just not knowing exactly who they are and how they want to play. And I think with the additions of Brandon Montour and Chandler Stevenson in the offseason, it's, even if we weren't happy with the terms of the contracts, it kind of gave us a little bit of hope of like, okay, they really do believe in this team. They believe in themselves. They're going to make a huge, push here. And whether or not that was realistic, I think we did have some thoughts that might be something they do. And it just never came around. It never came to fruition. And they fell so extremely short, despite the fact that they spent so much money in the offseason. And I don't really know what to do with that. And I don't want to keep having these same conversations year after year if nothing's going to change. And I've said before, I am totally okay with us not being great for a while, going through those growing pains, if we know that they're coming together as a team, they're working on their identity, they're gelling, they're moving closer, we're seeing just good gameplay, and we're seeing systems develop and these younger players come in and start to develop as well. If that's the case, I am okay with missing the playoffs and just continuing to grow. But if they're going to be in this, sort of unknown back and forth, are we going to, are we not, situation where they don't necessarily have the pieces to compete at the, in the playoffs or even get to the playoffs, and they're still going to try to hang their hat on that, that's going to be really tough. So I think overall for the season, there were some bright spots. Obviously Joey Decord, huge bright spot this season. And, we've talked about it a bunch, how if he had been on a different team and won more games, with the support behind him or in front of him, I guess, it would have been a different conversation. So definitely a bright spot. I think Shane Wright to me is still a bright spot. Even though he didn't get the minutes we wanted, I still think his season was a total success. I just feel like, he's going to just continue to grow and become better and, be one of those players that we just enjoy watching for so long. And I'm excited for that. That part is really cool. I just think, this team needs to figure out something, and I don't know exactly what that looks like, and I don't even know how to pinpoint it or put my finger on it, but I just think they need to be, I don't know, they need a shakeup. They need something, because this has just been really tough to watch this season, and just frustrating when we think they might be one way and they're going to be a completely different way. And there were games I just felt like they didn't battle to the end, and I want that as part of the identity. So I felt like after the trade deadline, we did see more of that, and that makes me excited, because what I'm hoping is they can use that as a springboard to the next season. They can take that and build on it in the offseason and see what other pieces might come in. And I think that part is promising. So I'm going to take this season as just one that it was a very strange one. It is very hard to describe, but I'm still really hopeful for the future and what they're going to use from these past, games after the deadline, what they're going to use from those moving forward, and how they're going to come together, bring that identity, revamp maybe the leadership group there. And I think, next season we can be a little more hopeful. Maybe I'm naive in thinking that, but I have to have that belief, because otherwise this becomes way too painful.
We're going to get 107 points next year. I'm just calling it right now. So you can write that down and call this back up in a year. I also do want to cap this off by planting a little tease for some of our off-season content that we have coming. We're going to have a couple episodes where we cover our top 10 storyline retrospectives over the next few weeks. So you want to make sure you stay tuned to your podcast feed so you can hear more in-depth dives into some of these themes that we've talked about here. Now, it's a very busy news week this week with the season ending, so why don't you let us know some of the things that have been going on?
All right, so we do have quite a bit of news this week as the season wrapped up, and there were, locker room clean out day with a bunch of media. So I'm going to kind of share some snippets of that. And even as I'm recording today on the 21st, we're getting news coming in. So I'm going to try to do my best to get everything to you. And just know we'll be back if needed. But let me get into the news we do know. So first of all, Ville Ottavainen and John Hayden were reassigned to Coachella Valley because the Kraken season is over and they can head down there and play in the Coachella Valley Calder Playoffs. So very excited for them for that. Basically, those are the roster moves for the Kraken. Everyone that was eligible to play in the AHL has been reassigned. So I'm just really looking forward to the Firebirds playoffs. As we're talking about the season ending, I did want to kind of talk a little bit about the locker room cleanout day availability for the players. Some notable quotes. Of course, you can go to our friends on the media sites like Emerald City Hockey, Circling Seattle Sports, and Sound of Hockey all had great coverage of this, but a couple that we thought were really noteworthy. First of all, Jared McCann is going to undergo a procedure, and I think that actually would have happened today on the 21st. It will have him benched for 6 weeks. He didn't say what it was, but he did play all 82 games. When asked why he played through it, Canner said, "I didn't want to give up on the team. I'm not that type of guy." So this is something that I know Alex and I talked specifically about, thinking how he might have actually had an injury this season because he just didn't seem like himself. So this was no surprise to me. Whatever the injury might be, this makes total sense to me. I think I think it was pretty notable. So amazing that he played all 82 games. Also, I always have mixed feelings on that. Like, yes, that is your job and you do need to play, but also, wow, what was he playing through? Is it necessary? I hope that it's not a lasting injury of any sort, and that the surgery goes well and he can recover and come back strong next season.
Yeah, I think you have to give kudos to Canner here for powering through the season with whatever injury he has been dealing with. This is the exact kind of leadership qualities that we've been praising from him for a very long time. And as we would say, this is real rafters material, as we have said on many occasions, that we really hope he'll hang around Seattle for a long time and bring this sort of quality to the team.
Next little piece of locker day news. Jordan Eberle, our second captain, he said, "I still believe we have the pieces here to be in the playoffs and contending. I think the way we played the last month and a half hopefully shows that we care and that we take pride and want to get to that point." So I love that he said that. I think there's some, personal feelings there because he stayed with the team and really wants to, get to the playoffs and win a Stanley Cup. And, this is where he's kind of put all his eggs in one basket here. So I know that's, of course he's going to say something like that, but I hope it's true. I hope it's true. And, like I said, at the top a little bit, I do love that, they played so well these last few games, and I'm hoping they can use that as a springboard.
You mentioning that he chose to stay with the team really took me back to the tail end of last year when we were wondering if he was going to sign an extension or if he was just going to head off to some Stanley Cup contender, play his 1,000th game there 2 games later in a place like maybe like Edmonton. But man, am I ever glad that he hung around. I just can't help but feel that he really filled that leadership void that this team has had as part of its identity for the last couple of years. So I love these comments out of Ebbs. In terms of how the season ended, as much as we said over the last few weeks we wanted to play great but lose by 1, I do love the effort that this team put in, clawing through some of these games, except that Utah one. We'll just still try to forget that Utah Hockey Club game.
Chandler Stevenson talked really glowingly about Coach Dan Bylsma, and he said, "It's nice to have a coach that's a human being first, not a coach first." And he also said certain games might not go your way, but the effort's there. It's not always we lost, so we suck, and back to the drawing board and all of that. So unfortunately, we're also hearing today, April 21st, that they are moving on from Coach Bylsma. So I love that they loved him and that he was a human. I think that's amazing. I'm disappointed that they're only giving him 1 year. I think that's really upsetting because I actually really liked Coach Dan and I liked his coaching style, and I really liked how he treated the players, and apparently they did too. So everyone talks so glowingly about him, and it's really a surprise to me that they are going to move on after just 1 year. So that's really too bad. I don't know what that means for the rest of the organization as far as the staff, but wow, that was a shocking bit of news today. So we'll see what happens from here. The full search is going to begin, and we just heard this through X, but through Elliot Friedman. So pretty reliable source there, unfortunately.
This is really stunning news that came today about Dan Bylsma being relieved of his coaching duties. I was actually standing in a voter line to go do some advanced polls up here in Canada for an upcoming election we have going on. And I was really stunned at this news that came out today about Dan Bylsma. I was actually standing in line at one of the polling stations for our advanced polls for the election we have going on up here, and my phone buzzed, and I looked down, and there was a news alert from the score saying Dan Bylsma no longer head coach of the Seattle Kraken, and I was floored. My mouth was agape. I was stunned. I just did not see that coming. I think if we compare this with last season when we had Dave Haxtell's departure, I think we could all accompany that with the Lizzo song About Damn Time, because that's how we were feeling at that moment, and thinking that this is the change that would need to happen to get us to a winning season. If we were to couple a song with this Dan one, I think like Charlie Puth's See You Again. Like, this is a sad one to see him go. It's a real bummer. I'm sure that Derek is kind of gloating a little bit wherever he's at when he had his grievance saying that everyone who said losing Haxtell and getting a new coach was wrong, because, well, that's where we are now. I think it's a little intense to only give Dan a one season shot and then send him out the door because of less than ideal season performance. But surely you have to give him a season to find his footing and then hopefully get the systems in place the year following and be a well-oiled machine. I mean, this guy took your AHL team to back-to-back Calder Cup finals, where his CV record over 2 seasons was 94, 32, and 18. And many of those players are now moving up into the Kraken system. So there should be a real easy transition happening there. But I guess we just now need to start bracing for another season of figuring everything out and starting back at square one. All that being said, I do love that Stevie had some praise for Disco here. In all the interviews and press conferences and clips of Dan, it does seem like he's a really genuine guy who cares about his players. And I'm really personally going to miss his locker room belt videos after wins when he's handing out the game-winning pucks and things like that. And every fourth word that he says is censored out because apparently Disco Dan has the mouth of a sailor.
Shane Wright said that he wanted to work on being a little more selfish with the puck and not giving it up so fast. So I'm for that. I also think he could be more selfish in asking for more minutes. Just kidding. But really, a lot of it is that he just didn't have enough minutes to go through and really make the I think development steps that he needed to. And he did some, but I'm hoping that changes in the future and he'll get some more ice time.
Yeah, all I really have to say about this one is, yes, please, all the shots for Shane. Please just let him fire it. Be like that bratwurst cannon they had and just embody that and fire shot after shot after shot.
Next person I want to chat about is Josh Mahura. He is a pending UFA, and he stated that he very much enjoyed his time in Seattle and would love to stay if there's mutual interest. I hope he stays. I really like Josh Mahura. I really liked how he played. I think he was a great fit, and I hope that we are able to keep him around. If they don't, I understand as well, but I hope that he's a piece that can stay because I think he's been a great asset to the team.
I too really enjoyed Muzzy this season. I still chuckle thinking about that monster hit that he had earlier in the season that led to a goal. I can't remember the exact game, but it was a great moment. I think that he is another big benefit of that Borgie trade because Will Borgen leaving allowed more time for Josh Mahura to have on the ice. Towards the end, it started turning into a bit of a cycle between him and Riker and Cale Fleury coming up. So I really wouldn't be disappointed if we gave him an extension in free agency to keep him around. If he chooses to go elsewhere, good for him, but I really think he was a solid add this season.
Mikey Asamont's was somebody else that was able to speak, and he said, I feel like I've established myself. Not many players are asking me who the F are you anymore. So I really love that. I loved his play. He was very smart. He on the ice, he was really fitting in well, I think, with the team. So he's not going to be very expensive. He can stay on the fourth line. I think that's a great pickup. I didn't know who he was either before we got him. So I think that's something that we were really lucky to pick up, and I'm happy about him and how he played. So I do hope we keep him.
So the first thing that came to mind when I heard this soundbite or saw this quote from Mikey was the Conor McGregor quote that went like this.
Who the f*** is that guy?
Because that's definitely what I thought when Ace first came over at the trade deadline. My thoughts are really going to echo yours in that I thought he was just a nothing player that got packaged in for Bjorky and Yanni, but he really did surprise me. I thought that he showed real tenaciousness like Turbo would, and he had real shit disturbing tendencies like Yanni Gord, but at a fraction of the cost of those two guys. So he's another one like Mahura that I wouldn't be upset to see hang around next year and fill out that bottom line.
Last one I wanted to talk about that's noteworthy was Philip Grubauer. They asked him about getting his confidence back this year, and he said, this whole year has nothing to do with confidence. It's finding the playing time. You talk about the first game of the preseason. It's always scrambly. You sit on the bench for 2 to 3 weeks, and it's basically coming out of preseason, just getting into the rhythm and like playing consistently. I think that was the biggest issue. So I think, he's someone that really benefits from consistent play. If you think back to year 2 in the playoffs, he was so solid and so good. And it really was because the workload was there. And I think he's someone that if he sits for too long, he gets out of rhythm, like he said, but it's, he also gets out of the headspace of goaltending. And I think it's really difficult for him. And I can totally understand that. So I think that was hard for him. And I think when he was thrown in and had bad games, that also got in his head. And I think going down to Coachella was such a good thing for him, honestly, because he really was able to go and get consistent games and start playing and find his groove again. And he did come back and play better. So, I think it's just been a really hard season for him. And, I want him to do well no matter where he ends up, if that's with us or if they do buy him out. But I just really hope that that he gets another chance wherever it is, because I think he is such a great human, and I do think he's talented. I just think this was a tough season for him. So I think, we'll see what happens with Grubauer. I'm not going to be surprised when, for a buyout, but yeah, I think it was just rough for him not to get those consistent games.
Yeah, this one's a little complicated because I do understand and appreciate that he could feel frustrated with not getting playing time and not being able to establish a rhythm. But at the same time, if you're not playing well and having bad performances, I think it's completely justified to find yourself riding the bench. Great guy, but great guys don't always win games. I mean, Dan Bylsma is a great guy, and look where he ended up. But like you said, whatever happens to him, I really do hope for the best and hope that he's able to land something that allows him to feel more like himself and make him feel better utilized.
All right, a couple more pieces of news here. Todd Leiweke also addressed the season ticket holders, and he held an event at 32 Bar and Grill, and he talked about a few announcements that are going to go into place next season. One of the big things that he talked about was talking about changes to ticketing for next year. And this has been such a point of contention for a lot of people because it is very expensive to go to games, and season tickets are wildly expensive. So he said that about 80% of season ticket holders would see reductions in their pricing next year and would receive perks like 25% off concession. And in addition to this, season ticket holders can enjoy events such as Paint the Ice, a draft watch party, and Kraken holiday pictures with Bowie. And he also said that family packs of tickets would be more readily available. And I love that because I think that was one of the best things they did was those family packs of tickets, because I mean, I see ticket prices and I look at them and I can't imagine taking a family of 4 and then thinking, oh, I also have to buy, food and snacks and parking and all of that. And it is just extremely wild pricing. So I think that's one of the best things they did. I would love for them to do that more. So that made me really happy too.
Yeah, this price reduction all around just can't be nothing but a good thing. That family packs deal being more readily available, that's awesome. We always talk about the Saturday and Sunday games, that those are for the kids. Get those kids out, get them in early on loving that Kraken hockey. One thing that I liked in the talking points he had about ticket prices was that they paid attention to the resale value and the secondary market as a factor. I remember 2 years ago, I came down to CPA for my first trip to Seattle, my first Kraken game, and I had to break the bank for nosebleed seats that were probably 4 or 5 rows from the top. So hopefully changes like this make it a little more affordable and manageable for fans looking to come out and attend games.
Todd Leiweke also teased that a 3rd jersey is coming next year. I'm very excited about this. I've already marked Shane Wright for my third jersey, so I'm really hoping that that is true.
I just want to say that I'm going to only assume that Todd Leiweke is a BTW listener, and he listened to our Cracktivist episode back in December when I said that I need this team to come out with a 3rd jersey. So hopefully it doesn't disappoint. I just this season got my 4 jerseys that I have personalized with players, so I gotta start up my list of contenders to see who's going to come on this 3rd jersey. Maybe Shane Wright, maybe Capo Caco, maybe Joey. I don't know. It's wide open. Maybe Stevie. We'll make Stevie happen. That'll just enrage a lot of people.
All right. Couple of other pieces of news, and then I promise we will move along to the next thing here. So draft lottery odds are set, and according to Tankathon, this is how Seattle is looking. So their chance to get the first overall pick is 7.5%, second overall pick 7.7%, third overall pick 0.2%, sixth overall pick 34.1%, seventh overall pick 41.4%, and eighth overall pick 9.1%. So it will be quite interesting to see how that plays out. It's very rare when those things switch around. So if that's where they're, if that where the percentages are, then we're probably looking at 6th or 7th, but we will see.
I just want to say with the draft lottery, I think the broadcast of them lifting up cards is just so boring. Just like guys standing there lifting them up. Bring back the bingo ball tumbler so that we can have some excitement that this is happening. I just think that would add a real spectacle to it.
All right. Very, very exciting piece of news here. So we talk a lot about the PWHL and how very successful it was here when they toured here in Seattle and all over, actually. But according to multiple reports, the PWHL is expected to make their announcement at the expansion in Vancouver this week. Post Media's Patrick Johnson broke the news last week, also adding that the team could start as soon as next season and that the team would play at the Pacific Coliseum in East Vancouver. Very exciting. We love more women's hockey in any capacity, but more exciting than that is April 17th, Circling Seattle Sports made a post saying that sources have indicated to CSS that a PWHL team is coming to Seattle. This has real traction and it's happening. We'll know more soon. Makes a lot of sense that a special announcement is coming in Vancouver. So I am beyond excited for this. This is something that we have been rallying for. We have wanted for so long. We've been asking for it. We have been just coming together and, hosting watch parties around this. And, I just think it is super exciting that the fact that we might get this team or probably are getting this team and I'm going to be all in. I cannot wait. We were worried that they might only expand to the East. So it is, it's beyond exciting. I cannot wait. We've been kind of playing around with different names for the team. And I just think, this is going to be such an exciting thing. So I think, just get on board because everyone watches women's sports. Everyone watches women's hockey. And I think this is going to be such a great opportunity for even more people to have that experience.
So before the Dan Bylsma news dropped today, I would say that this is probably the most exciting story of the week. The following of the PWHL this year specifically has been one of my favorite parts of putting together the sound table segment every week, especially getting to talk about the success of the Takeover Tour. We were all hoping that Seattle would be one of the 2 rumored expansion teams, but thought that stretching this far west might make it a long shot. In the same way that I blindly jumped on the Kraken with the announcement of this team and really no previous hockey experience, I am so ready to do the exact same thing with PWHL Seattle. With the 2025 PWHL drafts that take place in June 24th, you'd have to think that this expansion announcement is coming pretty soon to get in with the hype of the Vancouver announcement as well. It's supposed to be happening this week. I'm just pumped to passionately back whatever team comes our way. And as you said, we've kind of had some banter amongst ourselves about what we want team names to be. I saw the Women's Pro Hockey Seattle account pitch a bunch of names as well. And I want to throw some of my branding ideas out there. Let me know on our Twitter feed what you feel about these and if you think any of them are good. So I hope that the branding behind this team is as fantastic as the Kraken branding is. I know that everyone was really hoping to have the Sirens as a name, but then that was so rudely taken away from us by New York. So my first pitch, if you wanted to keep it Sea theme, I would go with the idea of the Seattle Surge. For several years, there was a Call of Duty esports team of the same name, but they have since moved to Vancouver, so I'm going to declare this fair game. Trademark is open. I don't know if that's how it works, but head over to your Google, type in the image search Seattle Surge CDL, and look at the logo. It's like a super cool light blue or various shades of blue on a trident making up the logo. Looks super cool. Second pitch, if you wanted to keep it mythological, I like the idea of the Seattle Valkyries. So the Valkyries in Norse mythology were a group of fierce female warriors who served as great inspiration to warriors to fight in a way that was worthy of Valhalla. So, I mean, badass warriors, sign me up. That sounds pretty sweet. And my last pitch, if you wanted to find something in the center of this branding diagram and mirror the mythical sea creature of the Seattle Kraken, I'd like to propose the Seattle Leviathan. What's more intimidating than rolling into CPA as the home of 2 terrifying sea beasts? I don't know. But again, I'm very curious what people think on these pitches. Maybe you think they're garbage. Let me know. Put me in my place. Or maybe you have some ideas of your own. I just, again, personally cannot wait for this announcement whenever it does come.
All right. So we did have end of season Kraken awards. Brandon Montour was named the fan favorite for this year. Joey Decord, the Pete Muldoon Award. That's the player judged to have contributed the most to the team's on-ice success. And the 3 Stars Award, the player who accumulates the most points on 3 stars of the game votes. And then Jaden Schwartz was the Guile Fielder Award, the player who best exemplifies perseverance, hustle, and dedication. So just some fun things there at the end of the last game. And 2 more little pieces of news, and then I just saw a breaking piece of news that I will add in here too. Jaden Schwartz was named as the Seattle Kraken's nominee for the King Clancy Memorial Trophy at the 2025 NHL Awards. 1 player from each team is selected for this award and is given to the player who best exemplifies leadership qualities on and off the ice and has made a noteworthy humanitarian contribution in the community. And finally, Ellie Tolvanen will join Team Finland at the IIHF World Hockey Championship, and Brandon Montour plans to play for Team Canada. All right, and finally, as I'm recording this, seeing that it sounds like the Kraken are going to be moving on from Ron Francis as the general manager. It sounds like Ron Francis will become the new team president, and Jason Botterill will take over as the general manager. So that is also a really big piece of news here. So lots of big changes here. Wow, that is really something. Everything is changing. So you're hearing it here as I'm hearing it. Not much time to respond to that, but wow, that is a lot of news for one day. So, stay tuned and stick with us and just keep on socials because that's where we're finding out all these news too.
One thing I just want to tack on here is that Ron Francis will be having a press conference tomorrow, Tuesday, April the 22nd at 1 p.m. Pacific. So if we happen to get this posted before then, not entirely sure what our release schedule looks like, make sure that you tune in to see what he has to say regarding some of these announcements, because I'm sure there's going to be some pretty heavy-hitting questions thrown his way about the release of Dan Bylsma from the coaching role.
And one last piece of info regarding the coaching change is that we are seeing that Dan Bylsma is indeed going to be let go, but that Coach Jessica Campbell is going to be retained. So that's exciting for Coach Jessica Campbell. I am sorry to Coach Dan, though. That is too bad, really, like I said, for him to lose that after 1 year, but I'm glad to see at least Jessica Campbell will get a little bit more of an opportunity. Fingers crossed that stays true.
So originally the game plan was today's recording would just be Heather and I because Alex and Derek were tied up with things. But this Dan Bylsma news just shook Alex to the core so much that he felt the need after the fact to send us a little voice memo. So buckle up for this Kraken Canada rant, because when Alex is fired up, if you've been here before, you know you can get a little intense. So I will have my censor button ready, and here's Alex's thought on all the news that went down today.
So I'm sitting here thinking, survived the Easter long weekend, a couple other crazy things in my life that are going on. I can enjoy NHL hockey. But no, the Seattle Kraken decided that they were going to turn tables and make massive changes to their coaching staff, management, and downright just the entire look of this franchise from the top down, so to speak. Now, you need to really think about this, because what's happened today is we've witnessed Dan Bylsma be relieved of his duties. So Dan Bylsma has been fired. And shockingly enough, this one doesn't make any sense to me. I know there's a lot of people here that can say, oh, well, you know, coach has to go. Have you seen what he was given this season? And the fact that he was only doing what he could do in order to successfully get as many wins as he could. And the fact that he finished the season on 76 points is a miracle in itself. Now, with Bylsma being relieved, they still have to pay him for 2 years. And we're back into this soul searching for a head coach that can direct this ship into the best place possible, which everyone calls the promised land of the NHL playoffs. And I don't think that's going to happen when you get rid of a coach who's been here for 1 year and hasn't really been able to put his imprint on this team. Secondly, you have Ron Francis being moved up to president. Quite frankly, I don't think at all does he deserve any praise or any upgrade or promotion, so to speak, when you look at his record. He has been the general manager of the Kraken since the beginning, and downright lackluster to say the least. First season was abysmal, but we have to give him, a pass for that because it was the first season. Second season, okay, yeah, we got lucky, we got into the playoffs, we had one hell of a run. Third and fourth seasons were absolute dog shit. And in terms of that, what do? You promote him. You promote him to president. And in that, you bring in Jason Botterill, who was the assistant general manager under Ron Francis, to become the new general manager. Now, let's put one thing, in the driver's seat, and let's make one thing very, very clear. Nothing has changed in the general manager upper management section. Because when you look at it all, the Ron father is still the head of it all. Jason Botterill can make as many great ideas as possible, for trades and whatnot. Ron Francis could quietly be like, yeah, you still have to come through me. So really nothing's changed in that direction. And you really have to look at this now and say, what the hell are the Seattle Kraken doing? What is ownership seeing that none of the fan base is seeing? Because the whole fan base is saying, what the hell is going on? Because when you look at everything that's happened on this Monday, is the Kraken have fired Dan Bylsma, the head coach, after one season in the NHL with the Kraken. And in doing so, we've promoted Ron Francis to president and then promoted Jason Botterill to general manager. What I see here is that the Kraken firing Dan Bylsma and promoting Ron Francis doesn't make any sense at all. It's completely backwards. Because in this line of work, yeah, sure, let's pull Ron Francis off of that general manager role, but realistically doesn't deserve the promotion. So now we're in this position where the Kraken have made moves, but we don't really see any difference, in my opinion, because I think Botterill will still really kind of lean in that same direction as Francis, and that's the issue where we're at now. And we're going to be in that search for the new head coach. I just don't get it. This doesn't make any sense to me. It's poor. It's so poor being run, this whole team. And ownership doesn't know its ass from its elbow. It really doesn't. Because if it listened to the fan base, they'd realize that none of this would make sense to us, and it hasn't. You know, we can praise the fact that, like, oh, they did something. They made a change. We got rid of Ron Francis as general manager. No, you didn't. You really didn't. Look at other teams. Some presidents are still technically the general manager, but they just have a different name. Oh, but, you know, we promoted Jason Botterill. Did we really? He's basically Ron Francis. Have you seen his record when he was the general manager in Buffalo? It's not too good. There's not a lot of positives here. There really isn't. So what are we expecting this offseason? God, I have no clue. I have absolutely no clue. Because we are now looking for a head coach who needs to identify what the identity of this team is. Newsflash, we don't know what the identity of this team is. We've never had an identity. So why not get a third coach to try to figure that out? Secondly, we have a new general manager. I don't really have anything to really say about that because I'm not really expecting much. And Ron Francis is now your president. Well, to be brutally honest, some things don't change. And I don't expect much to change for this Kraken organization while Ron Francis is at the helm, even if he is not in the general manager position. So that's where I stand with everything that's happened today. Positive news, Jess Campbell is staying with the Kraken. That is so great to hear because, to be brutally honest, I'm glad that they kept her because she has so much promise that I think she's really going to help develop this team as they progress. Other than that, I got nothing positive. I think it was stupid. I think they're going to be kicking themselves in the ass later on because this was just downright a panic move. And quite frankly, I think it's going to be same different year when it comes to the 2025-2026 season. So, spewed on for about 7 minutes, and I hope you all enjoyed it. Take care.
The NBA 82-game grind is done, and now the real fun begins. The NBA playoffs are here, and it's time for all the high-stakes drama, clutch moments, and jaw-dropping plays. I can't wait. If you're looking to make the playoffs even more exciting, DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered as an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Try placing a bet on your favorite player's performance. Will they drop 30 points, 40, or more? It's your call. Here's something special for first-timers. New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Make it a playoff run to remember with DraftKings. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ice.
But with that is the end of the news. Thank goodness. And we'll move on to something else now.
So we only had one game since our last recording, and I don't think I'm alone in saying it feels like this game took place a lifetime ago. This game was a bit of a roller coaster. We starting off the game, going down 2 in the first period wasn't very fun, but then we tied it up, so we're riding back up the roller coaster. But then we went down 4, and it felt like we were in for a very rough night. But as the captain said at Media Day, they were going to put out a great effort, and they ended up falling by 1. First highlight I need to mention is my new favorite player, Ty Cartier, because thanks to Carts, yours truly is the new Sasquatch Cup champion. That little cup is coming north of the border, and I think it's going to look real good at Beneath the Waves headquarters. So again, shout out to Mike at Sasquatch NHL, who puts, I'm sure, so much work into the bookkeeping for all of those predictions, game in and game out, doing it 82 games in the year. I was definitely sweating going into that game because I needed anybody but Stevenson and, who was the other one? I think it was anyone but Stevenson or Maddie to score. And when Stevenson was awarded that penalty shot, I was pacing around my basement, just hoping against hope that he wouldn't score. And just, oh man, just seeing that made it really close. Secondly, special teams really thrived in this game. Karts' goal came while shorthanded. Monty, Maddie, and Tolvi all scored on the power play. And it's just really great to see all of those pieces falling into place, and hopefully we see that more consistently next season. I particularly want to point out that Monty goal. His shot was a 92 mile per hour rocket. I don't know what that converts to in kilometers per hour up here in Canada, probably like 7,000 kilometers per hour. But man, that thing was a missile. He did a Happy Gilmore style approach into that thing and just sent it. Side note, if you haven't seen the Monty mic'd up video on the Kraken socials, go watch it. This dude's a riot. He has lots of little one-liners that he says. And at one point, I think it was in that same game. It wasn't on that play, but in the same game, he says, I'm going to basically tee this one up off the blue line, so give it to me. And that's what ended up happening. We also need to highlight Viljo Tavainen for getting his first career NHL point in his first career NHL game. I'm not sure what the league-wide stats are of players recording a point in their debut, but having this happen to 2 people with Otavainen and Newman this season has to be a very promising stat for things that are coming our way. And I mean, seeing him on a line with Jamie Alexiak of 6'7" and 6'5", that was pretty intimidating. So hopefully he can use his size, unlike Alexiak has tended to not do sometimes. Would it have been good to see this team go out and win? Sure. But it was at least a fun, competitive game to go out on with a few things to celebrate, including Schwartz tacking 1 more goal onto a season-leading goal count, Maddie hitting the 20-goal mark, and Monty and Tolvi continuing to extend their career-high goal counts. Now, Heather, you were actually at the game, so I'm very curious what some of your takeaways were from being in the building.
Yeah, so I was at this final game of the season, tried to bookend, was at the first and the last and a couple in between, but it was fan appreciation night and didn't feel very appreciated at times with, not only did they lose, that's fine for the draft though, but there was a time when, like you said, they were down by 4 and it was really, really tough. And it was, I actually saw the stands kind of empty at that point because it was, it's rough, and this team doesn't necessarily have, always have the ability to come back. They have done it a bunch this season, but I think people were not so sure this time. But I will say they did come back. And it was exciting there at the end, and to only lose by 1 after being down by so many was pretty amazing. So that was good. Vibes ended up being good at the end, but it was rough there, especially at the start. For me, I think just always being so grateful to get to go to games and get to sit there and enjoy them and get to see people that I've met through the hockey community. All of that makes it worth it, no matter what the outcome is. It would have been nice to win on fan appreciation, but also, we're talking about them having competitive games and losing by 1, and that's pretty much what they did there at the end. So I'll take that. I was really rooting for that Shane Wright 20th goal, and then when Maddie got his, and then I was just like, oh, he did it first, but that's okay. Still a great season for Shane, and I, still happy that I got to see him and. it's a great night too when you get to see 5 Kraken goals. There have been times when I haven't seen more than one. Lucky for me, I've not seen a game with none like Alex, but I have been to games where there's been like one. So it's just an honor to get to go to games. So I'm just going to say that it was fun, had a good time. And it's really more about just being thankful that we do have hockey here and we have hockey to watch. And I'm very, very grateful for that. And, they did run out of crab legs in the club, and that sounds very privileged of me to say, but they did. I'm mostly joking about that because that's just one of those perks when you buy tickets super late and can get a really great price on them. But it is fun to watch some of these players, like you're talking about Monty's goal. That was incredible. It almost happened, and then it took a second for everyone to realize because it's so fast. So some of those things that you experience in person are just really amazing. So overall, I guess for the draft and the betterment of the team, can't really ask for anything different or better because they gave us something exciting at the end. All right, and now we're going to go down to Coachella Valley for Dessert Dialogues. So the Firebirds played their final 2 games this week. They played Friday, April 18th versus the Abbotsford Canucks. That was a 4-1 loss. This was the final home game of the regular season for the Firebirds. The Canucks scored at 11 minutes into the first on a power play. That was the only score in the first. Then at 16:05 in the second, Jacob Melanson scored his 6th of the season. That was assisted by Ty Nelson, his 25th, and Max Lajoie, his 34th assist. Incredible. The third was all Canucks as they scored 3 more times to get that final score of 4-1. They then played on Saturday, April 19th at the San Diego Gulls. This was a 5-4 overtime loss. This was the last game before the playoffs, and despite the loss, this actually was an exciting game. That's because we had people like Andrei Lashko scoring his first and second goals in the AHL. Talk about a great way to enter the professional hockey league, right? His first was assisted by Ty Nelson and Gustav Olofsson. His second was assisted by Nick Brouillard and Justin Janicki. Oscar Fisker Molgaard had his second goal of the season. He just joined the Firebirds, so that's exciting. That was assisted by Logan Morrison and Nick Brouillard. The fourth goal for the Firebirds was scored by Logan Morrison. That was assisted by Jagger Furcus and Gustav Olofsson. So I'm loving seeing these recently added players got on the board before the playoffs. What a great thing, because they're starting to, have lines come together. It was a very back and forth game. The Firebirds would score and then the Gulls would tie it up. And then at the end, the Gulls pulled ahead and the Firebirds tied it up to take it to OT. But in the end, the Gulls took just 34 seconds to score in OT and win the game. A couple bit of Firebirds news. Lukas Dragicevic has been reassigned to the Firebirds following the Prince Albert Raiders being swept from the WHL playoffs by the Medicine Hat Tigers. In 11 playoff games, he had 6 goals and 8 assists, and in 66 regular season games, he had 18 goals and 52 assists for 70 points. I'm very excited about him. He is going to be really fun to watch. Oscar Fisker Molgaard has been reassigned from the Firebirds as he will be competing for Team Finland in the 2025 Men's World Championship. So he had a few games there and with the Firebirds and really showed well. So exciting for him to play for Team Finland. Ty Nelson was named the Firebirds Man of the Year nominee based on his outstanding contributions to the local community and charitable organizations this season. And Nicholas Coco has been named to the AHL's all-rookie team. So our Firebirds are doing really well, and it's very exciting because the future is very bright. The 2025 Calder Cup Playoffs will kick off for the Coachella Valley Firebirds on Tuesday, April 22nd against the Calgary Wranglers in a home advantage best-of-3 series. The second game will take place on Saturday, April 26th, and the third, if necessary, will be on Sunday, April 27th. Our top Firebirds this week, we have Ben Myers with 51 points in 57 games played, Yanni Newman with 44 points in 58 games played, and Logan Morrison with 42 points in 72 games played. And our Firebirds finished the regular season in 4th place in the Pacific Division with 84 points. So get ready. We are so close to the playoffs for them, and I'm so excited to watch.
So not doing much of a sound table this week because there was so much that happened on the Kraken side of the news. But the one thing I will say is that the Stanley Cup playoffs are now set, and these are the matchups that are making up the first round. On the Eastern Conference side, we have the Battle of Ontario, Toronto versus Ottawa. We have the Battle of Florida with Tampa Bay versus the Florida Panthers. We have Washington facing off against the Montreal Canadiens, and Carolina Hurricanes playing the New Jersey Devils. Now, on the other side of the Western Conference, we have the Winnipeg Jets playing the St. Louis Blues, the Dallas Stars facing off against the Colorado Avalanche, the Vegas Golden Knights playing against the Minnesota Wild, and the Los Angeles Kings are facing the Edmonton Oilers for the fourth consecutive year in the opening round. And just a little extra tidbit here. According to DraftKings, the Colorado Avalanche are the favorite to win the Cup at plus 600 odds, and your long shot team is the Canadiens at plus 10,000. And that will conclude this week's show. So Heather, usually I would toss to you to see what games are coming up, but the season is finally, maybe perhaps mercifully, over. So can you let the folks know what to expect from us next week?
All right. So as we have made it to the end of the Kraken season, year 4, we are going to take a little breather next week. So no show from us next week, but we will be back very soon. And we will update you on X and the other socials if there is some breaking news to report, which it sounds like maybe there will be based on how today has gone. But do you want to tell everyone where they can find us online in case those news happen?
Absolutely, I can let the people know that. So first of all, make sure you head on over to YouTube and sub to our Beneath the Waves account at BTWSEA on YouTube. Go check out our every goal of the season video that I put up last week. It was a very fun project that I worked on all season long, taking all the highlights and splicing them down into one convenient video. So I think it's like 37 and a half minutes of just the good parts of the Kraken season when we scored. Go check it out. Let us know on Twitter or in the comments of the video what goal was your favorite, what stands out to you. As always, we want to plug the BTW store, bit.ly/BTW store. We have our Beneath the Waves design, we have our Joey icon design, we have Monty Mania, and we have the Price is Right on any piece of attire or thing you could want. T-shirts, hoodies, shorts, bandanas, fanny packs, coffee mugs, whatever it may be, I'm sure that we have it for you, so go check that out. And as always, please drop a 5-star review on the podcast app of your choice, whether that be Spotify, whether that be Apple, iHeart, whatever it might be. Take a quick second, drop us a 5-star review. That would mean the world to us. And if you want to stay tuned for the latest breaking news on the Seattle Kraken and the fallout of these coaching changes and everything else that's happening, you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Maybe we'll start getting into silly TikToks again. All of those accounts are at BTWSEA. That is at BTWSEA. Hope to see you there. For all of you who have joined us all season long, big time thank you. Whether it's your first episode or your 25th episode, we love and appreciate all of you and can't wait to be back in your feeds after a little holiday here. Take care, everybody.
Going beneath the waves.